Off from the headphones. Oh, now they can hear me. Great. Thank you very much. 101.1 The Answer. Doc Washburn Show continues, where if we are talking about something that you want to talk about, that you want to get on the radio with us, the number to call is 501 401 1011. I don't bite. The other day, what was it, Thursday or Friday? We had several callers on. So it happens. Anyway. No, because I've always talked to people about, hey, oh, you listen to the show? Great. We'll call in sometime. Oh, I just never thought I could get through. I'm like, really? How often do you hear callers on the air and you don't think you get through? So, but then the other day we had several callers and, but they got through. Anyway, that having been said, a lot of stuff going on today. Dr. Fauci is scheduled to testify before Rand Paul's committee on Wednesday, and expect fireworks. I've been seeing people in the past 48 hours commenting on very damning quotes from Fauci's diary. And I'm like, how did Fauci's diary get out there? So there's this AI thing on X called Grok, Grok. And I asked Grok, hey, what's up? How do people have access to Fauci's diary? And Grok was like, oh, well, Senator Rand Paul over the weekend released over 1,000 pages of documents, basically Fauci's diary. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, wait. I would think that if you're keeping a private diary, that would be something you do at home. And how would they? Oh, no. This guy had such a sense of invulnerability that he kept a private diary, making him look like a megalomaniac in the office. He was the head of NIAID since 1984, deep into the Biden regime, and he just thought he's invulnerable. So the fact he knew he was lying about everything and the people were dying because of his lies, yeah, whatever. So a lot of stuff out there. And we do plan to discuss this a little bit later on in the show. First, though, there is a guy named Tim Sheehy. And he was a Navy SEAL. He was a lieutenant, Navy SEAL for 11 years. And he's now a Republican United States Senator from Montana. And he had a very compelling speech about the Iran war on Friday that everybody has been saying, look, you got to listen to this. And so I did, and we chopped it up to give it to you in bite-sized chunks because I think it's my duty to share it with you. Let's go with cut one. Tim.
Yesterday
Sheehy.
We saw the President of the United States and many others at Dover Air Force Base presiding over a ceremony that is very sacred to those of us who served, and that is a dignified return of remains from the war zone. And that process happens beginning in the war zone through Dover to the hometown of our fallen heroes. I participated in many of those ceremonies myself, to include carrying friends of mine off the plane. One of those is on this bracelet. He was cut in half by an Iranian EFP.
So Senator Sheehy carries a bracelet with names of some of our fallen on it. And one of them was a friend of his who was cut in half by Iranian munitions. It's obviously he's getting kind of choked up there, and you can't blame him. Cut two, please.
This regime that we are fighting does not care about our partisan politics. They don't care who you voted for, who you pray to, or where you live. They want to kill all of us. And they don't just say it, they actually do it. And they've been doing it for 47 years. This is a war of choice. The Democrats are correct. It's a war of choice that was begun by a radical, lunatic band of terrorists that took over a beautiful nation 47 years ago, took it over with brutality, force, and savagery. And the second they took it over, they didn't free their people. They didn't unleash the largest oil reserves in the world to build schools and bridges. They took it over to murder their own people and to spread their disgusting ideology across the world. And that is exactly what they have been doing.
Let me tell you something I learned in college. Nobody gives you information for free. They want you to do something with it. So when people tell you, oh, well, we just went to war with Iran because Israel wanted us to do. No more dead Americans for Israel. They're hoping you don't realize that Iran and their proxies have been killing Americans for many years. Why are they telling you these things? I saw somebody on Facebook yesterday had a quote from Marjorie Taylor Greene. Remember when we used to think she was a conservative Republican? Before she had a little hissy fit because she wanted to run for U.S. Senate in Georgia and Trump wouldn't endorse her. Marjorie Taylor Greene calling the current administration traitors. And so I posted a picture of Marjorie Taylor Greene with her new BFF, Medea Benjamin. You probably don't know that name. She is in charge of Code Pink. They are funded by the Communist Chinese Party. They are anti-American. And Medea Benjamin, in the picture of Marjorie Taylor Greene, is wearing this big T-shirt about yay, Palestine, and all this kind of garbage. The people who are pushing the idea that Iran didn't want to kill Americans, they're doing it for a reason. I mean, guys like Tucker Carlson, his main benefactor, his main investor, is a Muslim from another country. People like Candace Owens, Megyn Kelly jumping in. I don't know who funds them, but I know nobody gives you information for free. They want you to do something with it. So when Tucker Carlson says, I don't think Hamas is really a terrorist organization. They're more of like a political organization. He knows he's lying. Anyway, what are you up to now? Cut 3? Yeah, cut 3, please. Tim Sheehy.
They don't just say it and talk about it. You don't have to believe what they say. You can simply watch what they've done. They have attacked families, women, children, innocent people. They don't just attack them and kill them. They rape them. They skin them alive on camera. They celebrate it. They honor those people who do disgusting things that we would put in jail for the rest of their lives in this country. And they do it for fun, and they pay them money to do it, and they're heroes to that nation. They've done it to friends of mine. They've done it to families who've been in this chamber. And the fact that we sit here and listen to elected officials of this country defend these lunatics who want us all dead. They want all of you dead. They want all of us dead. They don't want us to disappear with the snap of a finger. They want us to be raped, burned alive, and cut into pieces. Watch the video from October 7th. That's what they want to happen from Maine to San Diego, from Seattle to Miami.
Indeed, they do. There is publicly available video from the October 7th, 2023 massacre of over 1,200 people in Israel. And you literally have people all over social media saying, well, it's resistance and they deserved it. It's just, it's horrifying, and you can't reason with people like that. As the late, great Rush Limbaugh once said, the only thing you can do is defeat them. More coming up from former Navy SEAL, Lieutenant, U.S. Navy retired Lieutenant Tim Sheehy, U.S. Senator from Montana. And then we'll also hear some thoughts on the Iran war from Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana. He was a great guy, but after you heard what Tim Sheehy said, and then when you hear what John Kennedy says, you might start wondering, I wonder if these guys ever talk, if they ever have lunch, because they seem to be on different planets. Anyway, that's coming up. Doc Washer Show continues on Little Rock's premier talk station, 101.1 The Answer.
What's up, Doc? Can we rock? What's up, Doc? Can we rock? What's up, Doc? Can we rock?
It's David Lucas. You know, over the years, I've learned something. Most people, they don't have a money problem. They have a coordination problem. It's not that they don't have investments. They have plenty of accounts, but none of them are working together. In other words, they have all the ingredients, but no recipe. And when that happens, retirement can start to feel complicated, even stressful. But retirement should feel like freedom, not friction. And most people, they don't need a miracle. They just need a clear plan. Because having a few good investments isn't enough. What really helps is having everything working together. And that's why at Lucas Total Wealth, we developed the Thrive Planning Framework, bringing together taxes, healthcare, risk management, income planning, vitality, and estate planning into one coordinated strategy. You can learn more at totalwealth.com. That's totalwealth.com. Don't just retire, plan to thrive.
Investment advisory services are offered through Lucas Total Wealth, an Arkansas registered investment advisor. Arkansas Insurance License, number 1-615-2743.
This is Carol Platt-Liebau for townhall.com. Until now, hard-left influencer Hassan Piker was perhaps best known for appearing to use an electric shock collar on his dog during a live stream. Now he's making news again for addressing the College Democrats of America convention dressed as Mao Zedong. Piker's called Mao, quote, one of the great leaders of this world, unquote. Yet Mao's policies are widely estimated to have caused the deaths of between 40 and 70 million people. Had Piker shown up dressed as Hitler, the outrage would have been immediate and rightly so. Mao deserves no better. Piker's appearance and his denunciation of mainstream Democrats for compromising with so-called fascists reflects the extremist rhetoric gaining ground on the left. Unless Democrats of good faith confront that radical fringe, their party risks losing itself. Let's hope it's not already too late. I'm Carol Platt-Liebau.
Foundations of Freedom, a look at America's founding principles and the leaders who shaped our nation.
During the War for Independence, General George Washington, the man we refer to today as the father of our country, led American troops through military defeat after defeat. And in the bitter winter of 1777, he wrote this somber note to a friend in Philadelphia. Quote, "You might have tracked our army from White Marsh to Valley Forge by the blood on their feet," end of quote. Many soldiers continued to march through the deep snows of Pennsylvania without shoes. Others suffered from disease, hunger, and freezing conditions. Nearly 2,000 of Washington's men died. Yet George Washington did not lose faith. Amid the hardship, loss, and uncertainty of Valley Forge, he turned to God in prayer. At a time when our nation once again faces division and uncertainty, may we follow Washington's example, kneeling humbly, praying faithfully, and asking God to guide the future of America.
.1 The Answer. Doc Washington Show continues, where if we're talking about something you want to get into the conversation, number to call is 501-401-1011. Now, when I say get into the conversation, I don't mean like bend my producer's ear. I mean, if you actually want to get on the radio with me. I know she's much nicer than I am. And sometimes people are like, no, I want to talk to Doc. I want to talk to you. You seem nice. I'm apprehensive about getting on the radio. I don't want that guy to bite my head off. You but and she is nice, but still, her job is to try to get you on the radio with what do you call me? Yeah. So anyway, been hearing all weekend that U.S. Senator Tim Sheehy, Republican, Montana, retired U.S. Navy lieutenant, Navy SEAL, gave an incredible speech Friday about the Iran war, and we are right in the middle of it. And coming up after it, we'll have Senator John Kennedy's thoughts about our interactions with Iran. But Tim Sheehy, cut 4, please.
They want this country turned into a burning husk of its former self. And you don't have to theorize that. That's what they do. From the 1983 barracks bombing, where 280 Marines were vaporized in the morning, from USS Cole to the Achille Laurel to every terrorist attack, from the Houthis, Hezbollah, Hamas. These are not humanitarian freedom organizations. They are death-dealing cults, and they want all of us to die brutal deaths. William Buckley was abducted in 1985. An American military officer. He was skinned alive on camera by the Iranians.
Yeah, he was. It was horrific what they did to him when they murdered him back in 1985. Canada Free Press article almost 20 years ago said about the video taken approximately 7 months after he was kidnapped. Buckley was close to a gibbering wretch. His words were often incoherent. He slobbered and drooled, and most unnerving of all, he would suddenly scream in terror, his eyes rolling helplessly and his body shaking. The CIA consensus was that he would be blindfolded and chained at the ankles and wrists and kept in a cell a little bigger than a coffin. Yeah, they tortured him. They tortured him and they murdered him. So you can miss me with all this propaganda about how we're at war with Iran because Israel wants it. I couldn't believe a few weeks ago, Rachel Campos Duffy, of all people, on Fox and Friends Weekend, basically said that. Just unfreaking believable. They have been murdering Americans since the 80s, and it's time to put a stop to it. U.S. Senator Tim Sheehy, cut 5, please.
American prisoners of war who were captured. They were never called prisoners of war because they were captured by lunatic terrorists, so they were not subject to the Geneva Convention. They were captured and murdered, power drills through their brains. This is in Iraq. These are families that have dealt with this, and they've never gotten a single dime. These families have never gotten restitution, and not a single president has ever stood up to them. Love Donald Trump or hate him. Love his policies, hate ICE, love ICE, whatever. There's never been a single president who has stood up to Iran and hit back. For 47 years, our troops and our families have been absorbing attack after attack after attack all over the world. And their radical ideology does not stop at the Persian Gulf. It doesn't stop at Tel Aviv. They want to do this everywhere. It's a global radical ideology. And we've been fighting it for half a century.
Yes, we have. And the people who want you to ignore that, the people who say that Iran never killed any Americans, we have no business over there, they're lying to you for a reason. The people who say, I'm so upset because 50 Republican senators just voted to merge our military with the Israeli military, they think you're stupid. No military in the world is merging with the military of another country. They think you're stupid. And a lot of people are falling for it. Why? Well, I read it on Facebook. It must be true. Give me a break. Republican U.S. Senator from Montana, Tim Sheehy, cut 6, please.
We didn't start this war. We did not, but we will finish it. And forever wars are not popular with anybody these days. Both sides attack our forever wars. And I can promise you, being someone overseas wearing the uniform, when you're fighting for your country, you don't care what party's in office, but you're fighting to defend your country. And you turn on the news and see your elected officials stabbing you in the back, telling you that you're failing, that you failed every goal of the war, is what I just heard. Last time I checked, we've wiped these bastards out. An occasional missile strike and boats in the straits, that's not military strength. Those are the flailings of a failing empire. Those are the flailings of a nation in collapse because they deserve it.
Yeah, they do. They deserve every bit of it. We got one more cut from Tim Sheehy, U.S. Senator from Montana. Cut 7, please.
So I encourage our colleagues on both sides of the aisle, whatever's politically convenient, whatever plays well on Twitter or Facebook, think about the people who are deployed right now, standing on that wall with a loaded weapon, who volunteered to defend our country and our way of life. Because they are there defending us in a just war. Because we did not start a war with the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. They started it with us 47 years ago, and their attacks have gone unanswered for half a century. It's time to fix this problem and make sure another generation of Americans does not have to fight this murderous, savage adversary.
Amen, brother. Okay, so Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana is kind of like a fatherly figure, a great uncle, very avuncular, down to earth, real nice guy. But he seems to be in a little bit of a parallel universe from his colleague, Republican Senator Sheehy, we just heard from. Senator Kennedy on Iran, let us go with cut 12.
Here's
please.
what I think we ought to do. I think we ought to tighten the sanctions on the sale of Iranian oil. I think we ought to continue the blockade and starve them out. I think we ought to bomb Pickaxe Mountain and try to reach what's underneath it. I don't have enough information to know about continuing the attacks. The president likes the daily attacks. He believes that sometimes you have to kill a few chickens to scare the monkeys.
I told you he's a likable guy. Sometimes you have to kill a few chickens to scare the monkeys. What about just hitting them so hard that we take out the regime and end it? That doesn't seem to be on Senator Kennedy's radar screen, but whatever. Cut 13, please.
I don't think that's going to work with the Iranian leadership. These people are more than mildly insane. It's like dealing with Son of Sam or Charles Manson. But I don't think we ought to just cut and run. If we can stand the pain of the rising cost of energy, we need to stay the course, at least for a few more months. I also don't think we need to send in troops. That's my opinion for what it's worth.
He was on with Margaret Brennan, Face the Nation, CBS News. I wonder how many Republicans still go on there if they realize she's married to a Muslim who likes Sharia. More coming up. Doc Washer Show, 101.1 The Answer.
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters in Washington. Police now say there were at least 3 suspects involved in a food festival shooting near Seattle Space Needle over the weekend, and that one of them was among those killed in the violence. In a document filed in juvenile court in Seattle, where a 15-year-old arrested in the case was making an initial appearance Monday, police said they believe there were at least 3 shooters. The Trump administration has asked the Supreme Court to allow for now an executive order targeting mail-in voting. This request follows an appeals court decision that blocked the order in nearly half the country. Trump's order, issued in March, directs the creation of a federal list of eligible voters for mail ballots. On Wall Street, the Dow up by 262 points. The Nasdaq dropped 43. The S&P up by 1. More details at srnnews.com.
You've probably heard all those ads for life insurance. Just a few dollars a day, apply online in minutes, no medical exam. Simple, easy, and cheap, right? Now you're thinking, maybe I should get a quote. Well, smart thinking. Have life insurance. But here's what they don't tell you. Those few dollars a day rates, they're for young people in perfect health. That's why everyone calls Big Lou the 50 to 60-year-old not so perfect candidate. Like you. You take prescription meds. Healthy. You got to call Big.
101.1 The Answer. Doc Washburn Show continues. We're talking about something you want to talk about. Number to call is 501 401 1011. So I'm really thankful that when they redid the White House Correspondents' Dinner over the weekend, everything went really well. So let's take a look and see what Susan Crabtree, the great national correspondent with Real Clear Politics, has to say about it. And by the way, Susan Crabtree was a guest on the Sean Hannity radio show, guest host Jason Chaffetz, at 4:06 Central today, but you couldn't hear it on the local station that carries Sean Hannity because they only carry hours 1 and 2. So they'll have hour 3 on with Susan Crabtree, one of the greatest reporters in America, sometime tonight, whenever that runs. So I'll go ahead and scoop it for you. Here she is out there on X saying, new in Real Clear Politics, Secret Service plagued by arrests, criminal investigations. She says, last night, I reported that Secret Service agent Marquez Pender was arrested and charged Sunday with 5 felony counts in a near-fatal fraternity hazing incident that occurred this spring, according to court documents. This guy's a Secret Service agent. What is he doing hazing people in a fraternity? Marquez Pender's arrest marks the 6th known time this year that a Secret Service agent or uniformed division officer has run afoul of law enforcement. Last week, Real Clear Politics reported that senior Secret Service agent Kenneth Primo, 50 years old, who currently serves as a polygrapher, the guy that runs a polygraph. I don't know how to say it. was arrested on July 6th and charged with a driving while impaired, assault on a law enforcement officer, and sexual battery in Virginia. In May, Secret Service Uniformed Division Officer John Spillman was arrested in Miami after police responded to a complaint and found him naked and doing perverse things in a hallway of a hotel. Secret Service Uniformed Division Officer. In March, Secret Service Uniformed Division Officer Tristan Hale was arrested and faced charges for sending sexually explicit messages, images, and videos to a girl in Lancaster County. Pennsylvania State Police charged 28-year-old Hale of Virginia with possession of child sexual abuse material, unlawful contact with a minor, corruption of a minor, and disseminating sexual materials to a minor. But wait, that's not all. A Secret Service agent on the vice president's detail had his home raided by the FBI late last year in a wide-ranging tax fraud probe first reported by Real Clear Politics. You know, if you're a Secret Service agent and your home is raided by the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, I'm thinking you probably must have really goofed up. In addition, a Secret Service agent serving on Vice President J.D. Vance's detail is under internal investigation for either purchasing or trying to sell drugs to an undercover police officer, according to multiple sources, on New Year's Eve. I hope you're sitting down. On New Year's Eve, a new Secret Service agent recruit shot and killed his 16-year-old half-brother and may have been responsible for another bullet grazing a woman's face on New Year's Eve. The suspect has claimed self-defense while Florida police continue to investigate. Many current and retired Secret Service agents have argued that the agency's ongoing DEI issues and lowering of hiring standards, as well as manpower shortages in recent years, have weakened the agency's ability to prevent or respond properly to multiple assassination attempts against Donald Trump and provide security for the president's cabinet and dozens of other protectees. Now, see, that's crazy because we were told that under the Trump administration, the feds got rid of DEI. Apparently not Secret Service. Susan Crabtree continues. Last week, the Secret Service placed an agent on administrative leave who was suspected of leaking complaints about manpower issues on Vice President J.D. Vance's detail. And she links to the full story, which credits the Secret Service with keeping a scaled back and massively fortified White House Correspondents' Dinner safe last Friday while dealing with multiple criminal and other behavioral issues among its ranks. Susan Crabtree says, as I always stress, most of these agents are the best of humanity, willing to put their lives on the line on a daily basis to protect our continuity of government. They deserve better leadership and reforms that will raise hiring standards, jettison nepotism and other uneven discipline standards, and improve manpower issues and morale. One easy step, implementing a serious mental health examination, not a short written self-assessment, when hiring to prevent insider threats or other behavioral issues before taking the next step and expense of resources, manpower, to polygraph recruits. Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice. But again, I just wonder sometimes. I mean, the guy that President Trump appointed to be director of the Secret Service is the guy who was in charge of botching the Butler, Pennsylvania campaign rally that almost got President Trump assassinated. Came this close. By the grace of God, he turned his head a fraction of an inch at just the right time. Now, what you're not going to believe, unless you've seen it on social media anyway, is there are liberals in this country who think the whole thing was a sham. The whole thing was a setup. As if President Trump and crooks could have practiced it. Now remember, just wing the top of my ear. Don't put a bullet in my temple, because that will upset me. Okay, so what about me? Well, the snipers will take you out immediately, but we'll take care of your mom and dad, okay? Good deal? There are liberals in this country who actually believe that the whole thing was staged. Yo, fam, I can't call it. It's just, it's amazing what people will believe. You know, it's just like the people who go on Facebook, right? And they see dozens of Facebook posts, made up stories about Kurt Russell or Vince Gill or fill in the blanks, whoever. The women on The View, dozens of made up stories every week, and they believe every one of them. There aren't enough hours in the day for all those Kurt Russell stories to be true. And you can tell it's AI generated because it's always like, and he answered very quietly. And then the studio froze. And people are like, you go, buddy. Yay. Or, I hate you. Whatever. And I'm like, wait, you believe this is true? What? That's not even a photograph. It's an AI generated painting. It's the same idea as the libs believe that the assassination attempt on President Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania was staged. They don't think through. It's insane. Oh, by the way, President Trump out there on, well, I'll save it. I'll tell you in a minute. We got to do this. The Doc Washburn Show continues on Little Rock's premier talk station, 101.1 The Answer.
This is Carol Platt-Liebau for townhall.com. Until next.
101.1, The Answer, the Doc Washburn Show continues. Where if we're talking about something you want to get on the radio, talk about with us. Number to call is 501 401 1011. You're not going to like this. My old buddy Sundance over at theconservativetreehouse.com. Article entitled Lindsey Graham Video Biographer Documents Something Interesting. And for those of us who were not big fans of Senator Graham, we're like, oh, we're about to get the goods on Lindsey. Let's see what they goofed up and admitted. And it's a little bit different. Senator Lindsey Graham was having a documentary about his life and political efforts made at the time he passed away. The biographical outline is scheduled to be released in the future. And he has a link on that to Wall Street Journal. However, the Wall Street Journal was granted some excerpts of the recent filming. In a rather telling part of the storyline, Senator Lindsey Graham talks about his goal of eliminating the Iranian regime. He said he needed to work with Marco Rubio because Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner were in conflict with his intent to eliminate the Iranian regime. Buddy, you're killing me, Smalls. And then he's got this outtake from the Wall Street Journal article. Holder is now distilling hundreds of hours of raw camera footage for a documentary currently titled Lindsey's Game, which he said he wants to release in the coming months. Senator Graham agreed to it, saying he wanted people to understand his long tenure in the Senate and hopefully inspire others to work in government. Senator Graham repeatedly told the crew how cool this was, according to Holder. This must be the guy producing the documentary. No, it's not Eric Holder. I can guarantee you that. Holder said he would call what this was a game, describing how Lindsey Graham told him how bizarre he thought it was that a senator from South Carolina had a closer relationship with the Saudi Arabian leader than anyone in a Democratic or Republican administration. The film crew also filmed Senator Lindsey Graham as he spoke in March with Jake Sullivan, who was National Security Advisor under Joe Biden, about the challenges of working with the Trump administration on Middle East negotiations. Lindsey Graham said to Jake Sullivan, "I can't do it with Jared and I can't do it with Witkoff. They're just too conflicted. It's got to be Rubio," referring to Trump's primary envoys in the negotiations, his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and his longtime friend, Steve Witkoff, and, of course, the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. A White House official said Lindsey Graham, Steve Witkoff, and Jared Kushner were close friends. The official said Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner are excellent deal makers whose results speak for themselves. Really? That's what you're going with right now? Jake Sullivan asks Lindsey Graham in March about how much longer the war in Iran is going to last, and Lindsey Graham provides a response that proved to be wildly off. Quote, "In 3 to 4 weeks, we're going to have them in a spot where they start losing control of some cities, get the Arabs more openly involved tomorrow, and then have almost irreversible momentum," unquote. Yeah, that was wildly off. But, yeah, it's just very troubling. I don't think that, what does the White House official mean? The record shows that Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner are great at making deals. By the way, before the break, I mentioned President Trump is out there on Truth Social highlighting Senator Ron Johnson's op-ed in Wall Street Journal entitled "Move to End the Filibuster Now Before Democrats Do." And the subtitle is also pretty strong. It says the 60 vote threshold stops bad bills, but it also makes it impossible for the GOP to pass good ones. Yeah, see, that doesn't really seem to land with people like John Thune, who, by the way, President Trump has been calling out John Thune publicly. And that's pretty unusual, really. I can't remember the last time a sitting U.S. president has called out Senate Majority Leader of the same party. Now, I'm not saying that the president shouldn't be doing it. I'm just saying Thune must be really, really making things very bad for what they're trying to accomplish. It's just ridiculous. Now, a lot of us are pretty ticked off that the bombing has stopped in Iran. Jihad Watch has the latest. Mojtaba Khamenei, the new Ayatollah, writes to Hezbollah, no path remains except jihad. As this was just another written message, there's still no clear indication of Khamenei's condition, or even if he's still alive. Meanwhile, this is yet another indication of how the Iranians, or at least the supporters of Iran's Islamic regime, view their conflict with the United States. They see it as a religious conflict, jihad for Islam, which is the one aspect of it that State Department analysts and virtually everyone else in the West continue to resolutely ignore. Yes, they certainly do. So here's the little clip from Times of India, dated yesterday. Iran's Supreme Leader Mojtaba Khamenei said the Islamic Republic would continue supporting Hezbollah as a strategic policy and that no path remains except jihad and resistance. Khamenei said perseverance on the path of resistance would bring divine victory. He also said preserving Lebanon's territorial integrity and securing a complete and unconditional end to Israeli attacks were the first conditions of a memorandum of understanding to end the war with the United States. Well, see, here you go. I've shared with you a couple of times a column from a guy who was brought up Muslim and is no longer Muslim over the Middle East. And the gist of it was, no matter how much of the Iranian ruling regime we take out, if we let them survive, no matter how degraded whatever capabilities they have are, no matter what a basket case Iran is, if we let whoever's left over from the Iranian regime survive, they will internalize that. They will credit that to Allah is on their side. They will believe, despite all the evidence to the contrary, that Allah helped them defeat the great Satan, that's the U.S., because we let them live. Got it? We need to make sure we don't make that mistake. And so hitting the pause button because Witkoff and Kushner are conflicted, that's a really bad way to go. By the way, families of 9/11 victims petitioned to exclude New York City Mayor Mamdani from participating in 25th year memorial events. I hope they're successful, but I can't imagine how they will be. Doc Washer Show continues, Little Rock's premier talk station, 101.1, The Answer.
I won't tell me your name.
In the world of generators,
watch what you say, or you might just find yourself with the lead role.
The Doc Washburn Show. Weekday afternoons, 4 to 6.
If I don't lie down and take a nap, I'm going to keel over.
Doc Washburn on 101.1. The Answer.
Can we rock? What's up, Doc? Can we rock? What's up, Doc? Can we rock? What's up, Doc? Can we rock?
101.1 The Answer. Doc Washburn Show continues. If we're talking about something that you want to get on the radio, talk about with us, number to call is 501-401-1011. Dr. Anthony Fauci in the news. We're going to take a look at what Sundance is saying at the conservativetreehouse.com. We're going to take a look at what the Gateway Pundit is saying and what a lot of other people are saying. Here's the article just dropped a little bit ago on the conservativetreehouse.com. Ahead of Anthony Fauci testimony to Senate, Rand Paul releases files outlining serious manipulation of COVID-19 information. Dr. Anthony Fauci, the White House chief medical advisor during the SARS-CoV-2 outbreak under Biden and head of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases from 1984 to 2022, so for 38 years, has been subpoenaed to testify before the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee this Wednesday about his role and activity during the outbreak. File that away. It's not before some kind of health committee. The Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee. File that away. I'll make a connection in a little bit. Senator Rand Paul has long argued that Dr. Fauci misled the nation and indeed the entire world on the origin of the COVID-19 outbreak and attempted to cover up the man-made components to the SARS-CoV-2 that created massive medical, social, and economic turmoil. And so there's a screenshot from the website that's called Rand Paul's Reading Room. If you go to paul.senate.gov, you'll get the link. The screenshot, Tony's diary, what he wrote privately versus what he said publicly. July 25, 2026. Fauci's personal diary reveals that as early as January 31st, 2020, he was told by top virologists that the COVID virus's furin cleavage site raised real doubts about the possibility of a natural origin, with about half the scientists on that initial call believing it looked constructed. Despite this early private uncertainty, Fauci spent the following years publicly and confidently dismissing the lab leak theory while insisting the science was settled. The diary also documents his private frustration and defensiveness over gain-of-function funding questions tied to EcoHealth Alliance and the Wuhan Institute of Virology, even as he told Congress under oath that no such research had even occurred. Sound like Buddy's been perjuring himself. See, if you lie under oath in Congress, that's actually against the the law. Yeah, actually against the law. ConservativeTreehouse.com continues. Anticipating the testimony, Senator Rand Paul has released a massive data set of records from Anthony Fauci that includes a personal diary written by Fauci during the time frame in question. See, that's what flabbergasted me. I was just shocked that Fauci left the evidence there in the government for somebody to eventually find. That just flabbergasted me. I mean, he must have reason to be firmly persuaded that nobody can touch him. Anyway, the personal notes and records of Fauci indicate a serious intention to control all elements of what took place during the COVID-19 outbreak, painting himself in somewhat of a godlike position and arbiter of all COVID truth. The records released by Senator Rand Paul are exhaustive and paint a disturbing picture of a medical bureaucracy believed they were more important than any elected official. Dr. Fauci led that bureaucracy with visions of grandeur and an ego fed by a compliant media apparatus who consistently portrayed Fauci as the guardian of all medical truth. The exact opposite of that altruistic narrative comes through in the details within the Fauci files. Rand Paul says, and I quote, Fauci's personal diary reveals that as early as January 31, 2020, he was told by top virologists that the virus's fear and cleavage site raised real doubts about a natural origin, with about half the scientists at that initial call believing it looked constructed. Despite this early private uncertainty, Fauci spent the following years publicly and confidently dismissing the lab leak theory while insisting the science was settled. The diary also documents his private frustration and defensiveness over gain-of-function funding questions tied to EcoHealth Alliance and the Wuhan Institute of Virology, even as he told Congress under oath that no such research had occurred. So it appears that Rand Paul gained much of the information for his release from ODNI documents previously, Office of the Director of National Intelligence, discovered, researched, and released to Congress by DNI Tulsi Gabbard. It also seems like acting DNI Bill Pulte continued to declassify and release the files. President Trump realized on April 23rd, 2020, that he had been misled by the small group within the medical bureaucracy. Dr. Fauci noted in his diary, quote, after the presser, about 1 hour, Deb Burks texted and then called me saying it was good that I was not there, since after the presser, the president called her into the Oval and started yelling at her, saying, quote, you and Fauci have destroyed the country and the economy. I should never have listened to you. You have completely destroyed us, unquote. He kept saying this over and over again and was yelling at her. I encouraged her that we are okay, and at the end of the day, she and I will be loved by the people we care about. She was relieved and after wrote me a text sincerely thanking me. So that was from Fauci's diary. Sundance at the Conservative Treehouse says, we will be loved by the people we care about. Who exactly was that? The scale of the fraud orchestrated by Anthony Fauci is jaw-dropping. All those so-called scientists perched up high in their ivory towers, flapping their mouths to lecture and mock anyone who dared have an opinion on that massive gain-of-function experiment they unleashed. They were not doing science at all. They were stroking their own egos the entire time. The hearing on Wednesday is likely to be explosive. However, in accordance with the strategy of Democrats and communists in both the House and Senate, there's a distinct possibility they may not attend the hearing in an effort to diminish the sunlight. Yeah, that would not surprise me. That would not surprise me at all. Now, coming up straight ahead, we're going to have some things that an eminent actual medical scientist who passed away shortly before COVID came out said about Fauci many, many years ago. But, I said file that away. Fauci is scheduled to appear under oath, subpoenaed the Senate Homeland Security Committee. A lot of people don't realize Dr. Fauci was not the White House COVID coordinator. That was Dr. Deborah Birx, the woman who always had the scarves on, who stood next to Fauci at the press conferences. And when President Trump put Scott Atlas in the mix, kind of have the other side in there. Scott Atlas said it took him several months to try to figure out how Deborah Birx got that job because she had no experience in epidemiology or public health. She was an AIDS researcher. And Scott Atlas knew that President Trump hadn't appointed her. He finally found out who did. Deputy National Security Advisor Matthew Pottinger, who in a previous life had been a journalist for years in China. That's what President Trump always said. So I wonder if there's anything there. I don't know, but I do know this. When I was doing a podcast between radio gigs, I interviewed Kash Patel, and I told him that. I said, you know Matthew Pottinger? Yeah, I know Matt. Yeah. Okay, well, he's the guy that appointed Deborah Birx, and she came out with a best-selling book saying that every weekend she and her staff would get together and try to undo what President Trump had told them to do and hope nobody ever noticed that they were changing the verbiage in official documents. And Kash Patel was hot. He's like, they were breaking the law. They got to be held accountable. All right, brother. We're a year and a half into Trump's president second term, so just let us know when they're going to be held accountable. More coming up straight ahead. The Doc Washington Show continues on Little Rock's premier talk station, 101.1 The Answer.
What's up, Doc? Can we rock? What's up, Doc? Can we rock? What's up, Doc? Can we rock?
We asked parents who adopted teens to share their journey.
We just kind of knew from the beginning that we were family.
They showcased a sense of love that I never had before. I mean, he's not only my parent, like he's like my best friend.
At the end of the day, it's all been worth it. I wouldn't change a thing about our lives.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. Visit adoptuskids.org to learn more. Brought to you by Adopt US Kids, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Ad Council. We asked parents who adopted teens to share their journey.
When I met both of them, it was like my missing pieces were found. Like it was just like an instant, these are my kids. If you're considering adopting a teen, just do it. Kids need families. I don't care the age. Everybody deserves a family.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. Visit adoptuskids.org to learn more. A message brought to you by Adopt US Kids, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Ad Council.
Did you hear Congressman French Hill on the Dave Ellswick Show?
We've been ranked, I think, the 5th highest election integrity state in the country by the Heritage Foundation. So these are common sense bills like voter ID, like funding for states if they need it to reconcile their voter rolls with non-citizens. Because in the Constitution, a lot of people don't know this, it's illegal, unconstitutional for a non-citizen to vote in a federal election for president. And this has never been a big issue in our country. Never. But in the last 10 or 15 years, we have states that do allow non-citizens to vote in local elections, county and city, for example, like in California. So, of course, this has created huge voter confusion.
Don't miss Congressman Hill, Wednesday mornings at 7 on the Dave Ellswick Show, 101.1 The Answer.
The more you listen to your kids, the closer you'll be. So we asked kids, what do you want your parents to hear?
I feel sometimes that I'm not listened to. I would just want you to listen to me more often and evaluate situations with me and lead me to success.
We're not adults, so just be there and listen. I just want someone to yap to. And I just feel like I'll be fine if someone just hears me talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk.
You're doing a really good job. And I don't think I tell you that enough. And I know sometimes we get into it and it's just hard on both of us. But try to understand me more and I'll try to do the same.
Listening is a form of love. Find resources to help you support your kids and their emotional well-being at sounditouttogether.org. That's sounditouttogether.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and Pivotal.
Doc Washington Show continues. if you want to talk about what we're talking about on the radio, number to call is 501-401-1011. So, Cassandra McDonald over at thegatewaypundit.com. Diary bombshell. Obama personally coached Fauci on Beaglegate. We'll tell you what it means. Deployed his fixer and weaponized the Washington Post to try to crush the White Coat Waste nonprofit group. In a massive development, exposing the coordinated effort to protect Dr. Anthony Fauci and silence critics of taxpayer-funded animal experiments. Newly released entries from the mad scientist's personal diary show that former President Barack Obama not only contacted the former head of the NIAID about the Beaglegate scandal, but actually advised him and connected him with his political fixer, Eric Schultz, to help discredit and shut down the taxpayer watchdog organization, White Coat Waste. All right, well, Rand Paul, I guess you need to subpoena Barack Obama too. Anyway, here's the article. This goes far beyond the account of the conversation that Fauci provided in his 2024 memoir. The Gateway Pundit has done extensive reporting for years on White Coat Waste's work that first brought Beaglegate into the national spotlight, reporting that the corporate media also spent years trying and failing to debunk. In August 2021, the Gateway Pundit reported exclusively on White Coat Waste's documents they obtained through a Freedom of Information Act request, a FOIA, showing that Anthony Fauci's NIAID had directed a portion of almost $376,000 grant to a laboratory in Tunisia where beagles were sedated, their heads locked into mesh cages filled with starved sandflies infected with leishmania parasites, so the insects could feed on the living dogs, and the animals were then isolated alone in desert cages for 9 consecutive nights to serve as bait. Did you know that Anthony Fauci funded the torture of beagle puppies? He did. Additional records detailed a $424,000 University of Georgia study funded by Anthony Fauci's division, in which healthy beagles were given an experimental drug and intentionally infested with parasite-carrying flies, causing them to vocalize in pain for months before being killed, as well as domestic toxicity tests on dozens of beagle puppies that included surgical removal of vocal cords. Well, see, I guess that way then they can't scream in pain. In one of many other beagle labs that White Coat Waste exposed, which were funded by American tax dollars under Dr. Fauci, dozens of beagles had their vocal cords cut to silence them before being used to test pharmaceuticals. The horrifying beagle experiments were real. The funding was real. And the public and congressional pressure that followed forced changes. Some of these Fauci-approved dog tests are even still happening years after he left the National Institute of Health. You know, you would think that would be something that if anybody bothers telling President Trump about it, he would say, stop it now. But apparently no one has. The Gateway Pundit continues almost immediately. Legacy media outlets and fact checkers launched a campaign to dismiss Beaglegate as a right-wing smear or exaggeration. The Washington Post ran pieces framing the public outrage as driven by so-called misleading images, and a campaign by White Coat Waste while downplaying NIAID's role, Fauci's agency. One Washington Post cover story referenced by Fauci in his diary had the title, Fake Beagle Research Claim Deluges Fauci's Phone Line. Factcheck.org and others claimed Fauci's agency had not directly funded certain specific experiments in the Tunisia lab, even as documents showed NIAID grants supporting related parasite and drug studies involving the beagles. Later reporting and admissions, including from the Washington Post itself in subsequent years, acknowledged that NIH had not been transparent during the massively viral public relations crisis. The media's initial push was not about accuracy. It was about protecting Dr. Anthony Fauci's influence during the COVID pandemic. In his memoir, Fauci described the Beaglegate backlash in self-pitying terms and mentioned a phone call he got from Barack Obama. He wrote, and I quote, "But in the split-screen world in which I lived, the far right had found a new line of attack on me. An animal rights group released a report alleging that I had directed NIH funding to be used for cruel testing on beagle puppies. In the midst of this lunacy, my cell phone rang. It was a familiar and welcome voice on the line, Barack Obama. The former president asked me how I was holding up under this onslaught of lies. He said, 'I'm concerned about you, Tony. You are a civilian, and you should not have to put up with this nonsense. As a politician, I'm used to this. But you have done nothing but serve the American public and the world for decades.' The conversation was just what I needed, and I hung up feeling much better." The Gateway Pundit says Fauci framed it as simple personal support. However, his diary, released this past weekend by Senator Rand Paul, tells a different story. Oh, buddy. And then they have the link to Rand Paul's tweet about this. Do you realize Rand Paul released a lot of stuff from the Fauci diary over the weekend? He says, "My investigation uncovered that Anthony Fauci kept a diary. What he wrote privately and what he told the country are two different stories. Today," and this was Saturday afternoon, "today I'm releasing his entries from December 2019 through December 2022. He said, January 26, 2020, Fauci writes in his diary, "Now we know the market was not the source, it was the amplifier." That's January 2020. The wet market was already off the table in his own private notes. February 1st, 2020, the call that produced proximal origin, 12 scientists, only 2 concluded it was natural. Per Fauci's own notes, quote, "The rest felt that deliberate insertion was possible," unquote. This was never a 50-50 room. Oh, wait, there's more. There's a lot more. And we'll see what fireworks happen on Wednesday. Doc Washburn Show continues. 101.1, The Answer.
Think about how many times I've had
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters in Washington. A federal judge has dismissed a lawsuit challenging the legitimacy of President Trump's Religious Liberty Commission. The lawsuit filed by an interfaith group argued that the commission's overwhelmingly conservative Christian makeup lacked the legally required balance of viewpoints. On Monday, U.S. District Judge John P. Cronin ruled that while federal law requires advisory commissions to have a balance of viewpoints, it doesn't specify how this should be done. Police now say there were at least 3 suspects involved in a food festival shooting near Seattle's Space Needle over the weekend, and that one of them was among those killed in the violence. On Wall Street, the Dow up by 262 points, but the Nasdaq dropped 43. The S&P 500 up by 1. More details at srnnews.com.
You've probably heard all those ads for life insurance. Just a few dollars a day, apply online in minutes, no medical exam. Simple, easy, and cheap, right? Now you're thinking, maybe I should get a quote. Well, smart thinking. Everyone should have life insurance. But here's what they don't tell you. Those few dollars a day rates, they're for young people in perfect health. That's why everyone calls Big Lou the 50 to 60-year-old not so perfect candidate. Like you. You take prescription meds and you're overweight. Winner, winner, fried chicken dinner. Well, Big Lou works with life insurance companies that want people like you with no surprises after you apply. In fact, if you're a 50-year-old guy with a few health glitches, Lou could probably find you $1 million of term life coverage for about $200 a month. So yeah, you need life insurance. But unless you're young and healthy, you got to call Big Lou because he's like you, older, heavier, and on meds too. Get a quote right now at 800-555-2085. 800-555-2085 or Big Lou.
Foundations of Freedom, a look at America's founding principles and the leaders who shaped our nation.
During the War for Independence, General George Washington, the man we refer to today as the father of our country, led American troops through military defeat after defeat. And in the bitter winter of 1777, he wrote this somber note to a friend in Philadelphia. Quote, "You might have tracked our army from White Marsh to Valley Forge by the blood on their feet," end of quote. Many soldiers continued to march through the deep snows of Pennsylvania without shoes. Others suffered from disease, hunger, and freezing conditions. Nearly 2,000 of Washington's men died. Yet George Washington did not lose faith. Amid the hardship, loss, and uncertainty of Valley Forge, he turned to God in prayer. At a time when our nation once again faces division and uncertainty, may we follow Washington's example, kneeling humbly, praying faithfully, and asking God to guide the future of America.
This is David Lucas. I have a question for you. Have you ever tried putting together a puzzle without the picture on the front of the box? You have all the pieces, but it's hard to see how they're supposed to fit together. And for many people, that's what retirement feels like. Even people who've worked hard and saved well still find themselves wondering and asking questions like, do we really have a plan or just a pile of accounts? Will our income last? Are we paying more in taxes than we should? And maybe the hardest question of all, if something happened to you tomorrow, would your spouse know where everything is, who to call, and what to do next? At Lucas Total Wealth, we help families bring everything together through our Thrive Planning Framework. You can learn more at TotalWealth.com. That's TotalWealth.com. Don't just retire, plan to thrive.
Investment advisory services are offered through Lucas Total Wealth, an Arkansas registered investment advisor. Arkansas Insurance License, number 1-615-2743.
.1, The Answer. Doc Washburn Show continues where we're talking about something you want to talk about. Number to call is 501-401-1011 if you want to get on the air and talk to us. I wonder if Fauci is actually going to show up Wednesday. He's been subpoenaed. But this time Rand Paul's going to be ready for him. And Rand Paul's not the only one who's going to be ready for him, if you catch my drift. No, there are going to be other people that are going to be ready for him too. The great Dustin Grage over there on X said, they told you with a straight face under the guidance of Anthony Fauci that this was our new normal. Never forget. And he has a picture of teenagers in band class playing their instruments, each one inside a one-person tent. Remember those pictures? Yeah, this is the new normal. It's kind of like kids in high school practicing playing basketball had to wear masks and would sometimes pass out because they weren't getting enough oxygen as they're running around a basketball court. Remember that? Unbelievable. Let me go back to what Rand Paul was saying, getting ready for the testimony. And basically, talking about what's coming out of the diaries that he got through FOIA. February 3rd, 2020, Fauci calls George Gao, G-A-O, head of China's CDC. Gao confirms that asymptomatic people without symptoms, can transmit COVID. Fauci writes that Wuhan health officials, quote, did not tell him this, and he thus gave out false information, unquote, a lapse that, quote, likely allowed the outbreak to take hold, unquote. February 12th, 2020. Fauci briefs 4 congressional delegations in one day. Then he runs into Larry Kudlow, who asks when COVID crashes the economy. Fauci's note, I told him that we are okay for now. 9 days after George Gao told him asymptomatic spread was confirmed. May 23rd, 2021, Fauci calls the lead author of Proximal Origin, the paper he had been citing publicly as an independent science, for reassurance about his own NIH grant. His diary says, I feel much better now that he's in total support of what I've been saying. Well, of course, you got the purse strings, buddy. July 7th, 2021, a briefing of the National Security Council. Fauci writes in his diary that the FBI has no idea what they're talking about for concluding lab leak, while National Security Agency's natural origin view was reasonable. He adds that he keeps an open mind, then immediately 2 possibilities, quote, does not mean that they are equally probable, unquote. July 7th, 2021, Anthony Fauci in his diary tells the National Security Council to go to work with Anderson, Holmes, Gary, and Rimbaud. Same day, Anderson and Gary post a paper arguing natural origin. Next morning, it's in his diary alongside the CNN write-up. He pointed the National Security Council at the authors, then tracked their press. It's kind of like a circular reasoning. July 12th, 2021. Fauci complains about, quote, how many hours we are all wasting, unquote, answering letters he calls, quote, fundamentally driven by conspiracy theories, unquote, from senators he names, including me, says Rand Paul. Asking who funded the research is not a conspiracy theory, it's oversight. Yes. So you got Nancy Mace, Republican member of the U.S. House, saying Fauci needs to do jail time. And see, here's the deal. On the one hand, the Constitution does not say that the president has to sign his own signature on a pardon. On the other hand, and people have been using the auto pen, I think, since Truman was in office. But on the other hand, you have members of the Biden administration, members of White House staff, testifying under oath that Biden wasn't even aware of a lot of the pardons. And this is something that is eluding people. This is something people don't realize. People are like, well, auto pen, so the pardon doesn't count. Well, it counts if he knew about it. But again, of all those pardons that Joe Biden did you know he did one in his own hand? And that's when he pardoned Hunter, his son. So, yeah, I think they should indict Anthony Fauci for crimes against humanity, for mass murder. Absolutely. He knew what he was doing. And let the U.S. Supreme Court decide if there's enough evidence that Biden didn't know about this one. Usually when a president uses an auto pen, it's just a convenience. He knows what he's doing. But Biden was, what was it Britt Hume used to say, non compos mentis? Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. All right. Now, we do have some audio, though, about Fauci that I got to share with you. And this is, I'll tell you what, let me take the call first, and then we'll do the audio. Brent from Shannon Hills, the Doc Washer Show, 101.1 The Answer. What's up, brother?
Oh, hey, how you doing today?
Pretty good,
listen,
sir.
Listen, you were talking about the problem with the pardon, but that only affects federal crimes.
Right.
And people died all over the country locally as a result of COVID-19.
Right.
And if Fauci's really behind it, then I don't understand why some local prosecutors under state laws couldn't go ahead and prosecute him for manslaughter, and the federal pardon does absolutely nothing for him on that.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely correct. And, people have discussed that. I wasn't thinking about that in the moment, but you're absolutely correct. I'm wondering, there are 50 states, and nobody has made a peep about this. And I don't understand why.
No, I don't either. And quite frankly, if you want to be cynical about it, if some of our AGs wanted to make a name for themselves up and coming, this would be a case to do it with.
Yeah, it really would. And from state to state, like in Arkansas, for instance, I'll never forget years and years ago that I found out that the attorney general of the state, by state statute, isn't allowed to do much. I mean, murders pretty much need to be prosecuted by the prosecuting attorneys in the different districts. But
you're right.
What would be stopping them? They're not all liberals, are they? I mean, good grief.
No, I mean, in Saline County, we got over 2,000 that died of COVID-19. If Fauci was behind it, then if nothing else, Arkansas's manslaughter law would apply.
Absolutely. No question. Yeah. But I mean, I was told years ago, and I looked it up, that, for instance, the Attorney General of the state of Arkansas really doesn't have the option of prosecuting murders and all that. But now, again, a few months ago, Tim Griffin, our Attorney General now, announced he's got this cold case investigation thing going on. I'm like, maybe the legislature passed some kind of a law saying you can do that. I don't know. I mean, I would hope they did, because, there's all kinds of stuff out there, like boys on the tracks and other stuff,
Absolutely.
But, it'd be interesting if I ever talk to Tim Griffin again. I'd be happy to ask him, so what about Fauci, buddy? I don't know.
Well, maybe you could get one of our local prosecutors here at the county level on the line about it.
I'm not really all that familiar with your prosecuting attorney in Saline County, but the one in Pulaski who's been voted out and is lame duck until January, I guarantee he doesn't have the taste for it.
No, Pulaski's not going to be any help, but we've got some much more red counties around here.
Yeah, and like you say, you've lost 2,000 people to COVID in Saline County. I mean, your prosecuting attorney there should at least be looking into it.
If 2,000 bodies doesn't do it, I don't know what would.
Yeah. No, you're right, brother. You're right. Appreciate your call. Thank you very much. God bless you, Brent. Coming up, we have some damning information, or at least an allegation, from an esteemed American biochemist about how ignorant Anthony Fauci is. And that's next. The Doc Washer Show continues. Little Rock's premier talk station, 101.1 The Answer.
If things don't change, can you imagine America in 20 years? Scary thought, isn't it? The good news is we have the power to take our nation back. Stay right here for all the information you need. 101.1 The Answer.
As veterans, we're no strangers to helping others.
It's what we were taught, trained, and told to do.
It could be for anything. Helping a friend move.
Listening to a fellow veteran for hours, at any hour of the day.
Or just simply making time for people. A neighbor, a loved one, or even a stranger.
We're often the first to help others. There's no question about it.
But we do have one question for the veterans listening.
When was the last time you reached out for help?
Perhaps it's time to do for yourself what you would do for others.
If you or someone you know needs resources, whether it's for stress, finances, employment, or mental health, don't wait. Reach out.
Find more information at va.gov/reach. That's va.gov/reach.
Brought to you by the United States Department of Veterans Affairs and the Ad Council.
Snakes, zombies, sharks, heights, speaking in public. The list of fears is endless. But while you're clutching your blanket in the dark, wondering if that sound in the hall was actually a footstep, the real danger is in your hand, when you're behind the wheel. And while you might think a great white shark is scary, what's really terrifying and even deadly is distracted driving. Eyes forward, don't drive distracted. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
You took the first step and quit smoking, but even former smokers may still be at risk for lung cancer. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know about a new low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early. It takes only 60 seconds and could save your life. You took the first step, now take the next. Visit SaveByTheScan.org for a simple quiz to see if you're eligible and talk to your doctor about screening. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
Hi, this is Gordon Deal. Join me weekdays for This Morning, America's First News. Hear the stories you'll be talking about and searching for all day as we go beyond the headlines and above the chatter with your first look at breaking news, money, Washington politics, technology, entertainment, entrepreneurship, and sports. We explain why stories matter. That's why we are referred to as the most important and relevant radio program. Join us weekdays for This Morning, America's First News.
America is at a tipping point. To ensure we stay the land of the free and home of the brave, you need to be informed and engaged. That's why we're here. 101.1 The Answer, where Little Rock comes to talk.
The Answer. Doc Washburn Show continues. You can always join us, talk about whatever we're talking about on the radio at 501-401-1011. There's a guy named Dr. Kerry Mullis, who taught for years at the University of South Carolina. He was a very highly regarded biochemist. In recognition of his role in the invention of the PCR technique, he shared the 1993 Nobel Prize in Chemistry with another guy and was awarded the Japan Prize the same year. PCR became a central technique in biochemistry and molecular biology, described by the New York Times as highly original and significant, virtually dividing biology into the two epochs before PCR and after PCR. So, Dr. Kerry Mullis was interviewed back in 1996. And this is before most of us had heard of Anthony Fauci. I had no idea that a lot of folks in like the gay rights lobby hated Fauci for pushing AZT on them, which they believed did not cure anybody from AIDS, but probably caused more people to die. Didn't know it. I heard of AIDS back in the 80s like we all did, but I wasn't really into politics so much back then. Didn't know anything about that. So anyway, Dr. Kerry Mullis about Anthony Fauci in 1996. Let's go with cut 8, please.
What is it about humanity that wants to go to all the details and stuff and listen? These guys like Fauci get up there and start talking. He doesn't know anything really about anything. And I'd say that to his face. Nothing. The man thinks you can take a blood sample and stick it in an electron microscope, and if it's got a virus in there, you'll know it. He doesn't understand electron microscopy, and he doesn't understand medicine. He should not be in a position like he's in. Most of those guys up there on the top are just total administrative people, and they don't know anything about what's going on the bottom. Those guys have got an agenda, which is not what we would like them to have, being that we pay for them to take care of our health in some way.
They certainly do have an agenda. And here this guy, who, by the way, passed away of, I guess, complications of pneumonia, August 2019, conveniently right before COVID hit us, trying to warn people about Fauci 14 years earlier. By the way, young Val just reminded me something that I had forgotten about. Back during the AIDS crisis, Fauci's agency was testing orphan children with AIDS drugs. Not all of them lived. It's amazing how that guy never went to jail. It's just amazing. Dr. Carrie Mullis on Anthony Fauci. Cut 9, please.
They've got a personal kind of agenda. They make up their own rules as they go. They change them when they want to. Like Tony Fauci does not mind going on television in front of the people that pay his salary and lie directly into the camera. You can't expect the sheep to really respect the best and the brightest. They don't know the difference, really.
You're hearing this. This guy tried to warn us about Fauci. I never heard this interview, never heard of Dr. Mullis until after Fauci became world famous. I'm like, oh, this Mullis guy looks pretty healthy in 1996. Oh, he passed away August 7th, 2019. Fascinating. I mean, you don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but you never know, do you? Okay, Dr. Carrie Mullis on Anthony Fauci. Cut 10, please.
I mean, I like humans, don't get me wrong, but basically there's a vast majority of them do not possess the ability to judge who is and who isn't a really good scientist.
Well, see, that's the thing. When he was calling people who don't know any better sheep, I don't think that he meant that in any kind of pejorative, disparaging way. You know? I mean, if you're asking me who's a better referee for a rugby game, I'm a sheep. I got no idea, man, because I don't know the rules. I don't know who's getting it done, who's not getting it done. My wife and I talk about this on a regular basis, how the word stupid and the word ignorant are two completely different things. Because we're all ignorant of some things. I talk to people on a regular basis who don't follow politics very much, but who are very successful financially, high IQ people. And I tell them, do you know our governor is fighting President Trump getting rid of the voting machines? They're like, what? No, are you kidding me? I thought she and President Trump were on the same page and everything. Yeah, that's what she wants you to think. They're not stupid. They probably got higher IQs than I do, but we operate in different spheres. We got one more cut about Fauci from the 1996 interview with Dr. Carrie Mullis. Cut 11, please.
What's the main problem actually with science, I'd say, in this century, because science is being judged by people. Funding is being done by people who don't understand it. Okay, who do we trust? Fauci? If Fauci wants to get on television with somebody who knows a little bit about this stuff and debate him, he could easily do it because he's been asked. President of the University of South Carolina asked Fauci if he'd come down there and debate me on the stage in front of the student body, because I wanted somebody who was from the other side to come down there and balance my, because I felt like, well, these guys can listen to me, but I need to have somebody else down here that's going to tell me the other side. But Fauci didn't want to do it.
Gee, I wonder why. I wonder why. So I'm going over to my buddy Hans Monkey's profile on X. And the first thing he's got on here is from our buddy Foya fan 15 pounds ago, who's saying, please, please, Donald Trump, please rescind Fauci's commendation. He was lying to you. No. You don't know this? Trump awarded presidential commendations to General Milley, Anthony Fauci, and Deborah Birx on his last day in office, when he should have been releasing the Spygate documents. Is this included on General Milley's chest of medals? Does it appear in any of Dr. Fauci's many framed photos of himself? You ought to rescind this stuff, man. Seriously, rescind it. More from Hans Monkey. He says, I had always wondered why Fauci seemed determined to drag the pandemic on for as long as possible. At the beginning, it was obvious why. It made him the most important man in America. It also helped damage Trump politically. And all the while, it distracted attention from the fact that the virus had come from a lab that he had funded. But why did he keep it going well into the Biden presidency? I think we can now see the answer. He had no intention of surrendering his position as the central figure, disappearing from the front pages, or giving up the power and adulation that came with being the man everyone looked to each morning. In the end, we got a never-ending pandemic, not because of medical necessity, but because Anthony Fauci needed to feed his own narcissism. Okay? Jeff Clark, former Assistant Attorney General under Trump, now Vice President of Litigation at the Oversight Project. Hans Monkey is retweeting Jeff Clark, who says, our team is reviewing the Biden tapes now. We will be out with various bombshells, but I want to make the point. Wait. What's the rest of it? I want to know what the point is, Hans. Come on, man. Okay, open up Jeff Clark's profile. We're running out of time. Jeff Clark. Our team is reviewing the Biden tapes now. We'll be out with various bombshells. But I want to make this point right now. The tapes make clear that Biden disclosed massive amounts of classified information to his ghostwriter, Mark Swanitzer. Now take a look at 18 U.S. Code 798. Last, ask yourself, why didn't special counsel Robert Hur seek a prosecution and then the forfeiture of the $8 million book advance that Joe Biden got for Promise Me, Dad, and his Delaware house and any other Biden property when he kept classified information? Oh, buddy, just found that out at the end of the show. Maybe we'll talk about it tomorrow. Maybe. The great Dave Ellswick at Val Lemon, 7:06 in the morning on Doc Washburn. See you at 4:06 tomorrow afternoon, God willing. Little Rock's premier talk station, 101.1, The Answer.
What else should I be? All apologies.
Scott Jennings fearlessly fights back against the mainstream media.